There's a quiet power most people never discover. It doesn't come from fighting, arguing, or exposing anyone. It comes from stillness, from finally changing the one thing toxic people can't stand, your energy. Because here's the truth. Toxic people don't leave because you call them out. They leave when you stop feeding them. When you stop giving them the reactions, attention, and emotional chaos they live on. They vanish. Not instantly, not dramatically, but silently, like smoke fading when the fire burns out. And if you master this one shift, this one silent act of inner transformation, you'll never need to cut people off again. They'll remove themselves. So let's go deeper. Let's explore why toxic people cling to you, why you attract them, and how one invisible change will make them disappear without a word, without revenge, without noise. Every relationship is an exchange of energy, and every toxic person thrives on imbalance. They come alive when you're uncertain, insecure, or too kind to draw boundaries. They feed off your empathy and your desire to be liked. They survive on guilt and attention, not because they're strong, but because they're starving. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is how most people live, unconsciously drawn to the very people who drain them. They mistake emotional chaos for connection. They confuse drama for passion. They see manipulation as love, because somewhere in their past, that's what love looked like. Maybe it was a parent who only gave affection when you pleased them. Maybe it was a friend who made you feel special one moment and worthless the next. Maybe it was society itself, teaching you that being nice is more important than being whole. And so you repeat the pattern. You give and give and give, until there's nothing left of you but the version others prefer. That's why toxic people find you. Not because you deserve it, but because your silence, your kindness, your peace are easy to exploit when they're unguarded. But the moment you awaken to this, something changes. You stop seeking peace from people who profit from your confusion. Here's something uncomfortable. Toxic people often mirror the parts of you that you haven't faced. If you attract manipulators, ask yourself, where are you dishonest with yourself? If you attract users, where are you overgiving just to feel worthy? If you attract people who play victim, where are you still living in guilt? The people around you reflect your inner state. That's not philosophy, that's psychology. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. Alan Watts said, "The more you try to control life, the less you are able to flow with it." Toxic people appear when you're still trying to control how others see you, when you fear rejection more than loneliness, when you'd rather stay small than risk being disliked. That's why your peace intimidates them. They can't manipulate what they can't confuse. They can't dominate what they can't disturb. As your self-awareness grows, you stop reacting to them, and without reaction, their power dies. The truth is, toxic people don't fear confrontation. They fear indifference. When you no longer defend yourself, explain yourself, or justify your peace, they crumble, because suddenly you've stopped playing their game. Toxic people are emotional addicts. They live off control, attention, and the chaos of others. Every argument is a hit of dopamine. Every reaction you give is another dose of validation that they still matter. That's why silence terrifies them, because silence means the addiction is over. They'll test you, they'll provoke you, they'll guilt-trip you for changing. They'll say you're cold, distant, or arrogant. But that's not truth, that's withdrawal. When you stop reacting, you expose their dependence. You reveal how little power they actually have without your energy to feed on. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." You don't punish toxic people by shouting louder. You punish them by being unbothered, by smiling in silence while they try to resurrect chaos in a place you no longer live. Because when you evolve, you stop vibrating at their frequency, and those who can't match your new peace fade away naturally. So what's the one thing you must do to make toxic people vanish? Detach emotionally. Not from people, but from the need for them to understand you. The need to explain, defend, or justify yourself is what keeps them connected to you. Every word, every reaction, every argument is an emotional leash, and they're the ones holding it. When you detach, you break that leash. You no longer argue with lies. You no longer chase validation. You no longer feel guilty for choosing distance. Because here's the deeper truth. When you need nothing from them, they lose all control over you. That's when they leave. Not because you push them away, but because they can't survive where there's no emotional supply. You didn't lose them. You simply stopped renting space in your mind to people who couldn't afford your peace. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't isolate you from the world. They protect your energy from contamination. A boundary isn't selfish. It's self-respect in action. Toxic people thrive on blurred lines, where helping becomes control, where love becomes guilt. They call your boundaries attitude because they benefit from your lack of them. But boundaries are how you teach people how to treat you. And the moment you hold one firm, even once, you'll see who respects you and who only used you. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Boundaries are how you reclaim that mastery. They force others to meet you at your level or leave. And trust me, the ones who leave when you say no were never there for you, only for what you gave them. Boundaries don't chase. They attract those who value peace the same way you do. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, something beautiful happens. The noise around you fades. And in that silence, you begin to hear something you hadn't in years. Your own voice. Most people fear silence because it forces them to meet themselves. But that's where true power lives. Toxic people disappear not because you cut them off, but because you outgrow their volume. They can't exist in the same space as your clarity. They're allergic to peace. And the moment you stop feeding their noise, they'll go looking for someone else to echo it. The Bible says in Proverbs 17:28, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." There's divine wisdom in silence, because silence isn't absence. It's presence without permission. When you master it, toxic people no longer know how to reach you. They knock on a door that no longer opens. When toxic people finally vanish, it's not the end. It's the beginning. Because the space they leave behind must be filled, either with peace or with the next version of the same pain. If you don't grow, you'll attract the same personality in a different body. If you evolve, you'll attract reflection instead of chaos. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's not about isolation. It's about alignment, where your outer world finally matches your inner truth. When you reach that stage, peace stops being something you chase. It becomes the air you breathe. When you stop fighting to be understood, you free yourself from the need to be accepted. And that freedom changes everything. People who once controlled you begin to fade. Conversations that used to drain you lose their meaning. The same old manipulations no longer land, because you've evolved beyond their reach. Toxic people don't disappear because you punish them. They disappear because you stop vibrating at their frequency. You don't win by defeating them. You win by no longer being compatible with their dysfunction. As Alan Watts said, when you stop defining yourself by others, you begin to see who you really are. Let's talk about something invisible but powerful, your energy. Your energy is not a metaphor. It's your tone, your posture, your emotional consistency. It's the vibration people feel when they enter your space. Most people walk around unaware that they are broadcasting energy all the time. You don't need to speak for others to sense who you are. Toxic people especially are masters at reading it, because that's how they survive. They don't look for strong people. They look for open doors. And those doors? They're usually your unresolved emotions, your need to please, your fear of conflict, your guilt when saying no. If you want to make toxic people disappear, you must first seal those doors. That means healing the wounds that make you react, that make you chase closure, that make you explain yourself to those who've already decided not to understand you. Energy doesn't lie. You can say, "I'm done," but if your heart is still tied to their validation, they'll know. And they'll come back, just to test if the door still opens. To close it for good, you must align your boundaries with your emotions. You must decide that peace matters more than being liked. That truth matters more than comfort. Because once your internal world becomes still, toxic people can no longer find your frequency. One of the most damaging illusions is the belief that you can fix someone who refuses to see themselves. It's a trap born from empathy and from ego. Because deep down, trying to fix someone is a subtle way of saying, I can save you. But people don't change because you explain their darkness. They change when they are forced to sit in it, alone. As Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. You can't drag someone into the light. You can only stop shielding them from the consequences of their own shadows. And that's why toxic people hate emotionally mature individuals, because maturity exposes them. When you stop arguing, stop rescuing, and stop explaining, their reflection in your calmness becomes unbearable. That's when they flee. So stop trying to teach lessons to those committed to misunderstanding you. Your silence is the loudest teacher. There's a spiritual law most people misunderstand, the law of detachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. When you detach, you don't react to manipulation. You observe it. You don't chase apologies. You give yourself closure. You don't force people to stay. You allow life to remove what no longer aligns. Alan Watts said, to hold on to something is to make it lifeless. That's what attachment does. It suffocates truth. Detachment doesn't harden you. It purifies you. It strips away what's artificial, leaving only what's real. And the moment you master it, your energy shifts so dramatically that those who once thrived on your confusion no longer recognize you. To them, you'll seem different, cold, or distant. But you're not distant, you're free. Here's something deep. You cannot evolve while you're still emotionally reacting to everything. The difference between a free mind and a captive one is simple: awareness. Awareness breaks every manipulation, every cycle of emotional control. When you learn to observe instead of react, you reclaim your power. Someone insults you. You observe the urge to defend yourself and let it pass. Someone tries to guilt trip you. You notice the discomfort and breathe through it. You become the calm eye of the storm. Toxic people can't survive in the presence of awareness. They need confusion, they need tension. They need you to forget yourself so they can define you. But when you stay grounded, when your emotions serve you instead of control you, you become untouchable. That's when peace stops being fragile. It becomes your natural state. After toxic people leave, many experience what feels like emptiness. But that emptiness isn't a loss. It's your return. Because for years, your emotional landscape was occupied by others, their opinions, their moods, their noise. When that noise stops, what you hear isn't loneliness. It's your own spirit waking up. In that stillness, you rediscover your identity, not as someone's helper, rescuer, or emotional caretaker, but as a complete being. You start enjoying quiet mornings, reading again, walking alone without needing company to feel alive. That's not loneliness, that's recovery. Alan Watts once said, when you realize that you are not the voice in your head, you are the one who observes it. That's what happens after detox. You stop mistaking emotional noise for life. You become an observer of your own peace. And from that state, everything changes. You stop craving attention. You stop chasing love. You start attracting energy that matches your clarity. Because now your silence speaks for you. But be careful, because the test doesn't end there. When you evolve, the same toxic energy often returns, in new forms through new people. The universe checks if you've truly learned the lesson. Maybe it's a new friend who guilt trips you in the same way your old one did. Maybe it's a coworker who manipulates you with flattery. Maybe it's a partner who drains your peace but praises your empathy. The lesson isn't to distrust people, it's to trust your intuition. The spiritually awake don't hate others. They simply recognize patterns. They no longer argue with energy that feels off. They no longer justify red flags. You'll know you've healed when you stop needing closure, when you stop over-explaining, When you say this doesn't feel right and walk away calmly, that's emotional evolution. That's when toxic people truly disappear, because you no longer vibrate on their level. Emotional neutrality is misunderstood. People think it means apathy or numbness. It doesn't. It means balance. You feel deeply, but you don't drown. You care, but you don't cling. You love, but you don't lose yourself. It's the middle path the Stoics spoke about. Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." That wasn't denial, it was mastery. Neutrality means you don't take people's behavior personally. You understand that how others act says more about them than about you. That's real power. Because once you stop reacting to every opinion, every insult, every provocation, you create a stillness that toxic people can't penetrate, and they vanish. Because peace makes noise unbearable. One of the hardest lessons to learn is to leave quietly. No announcements, no revenge, no need to prove you were right. Just silence. Because the loud exit feeds their narrative. The quiet one confuses them. You don't owe explanations to those who enjoyed your confusion. You don't need closure from those who created chaos. You don't even need apologies, because your growth is the apology they'll never give. When you walk away quietly, your absence does what your words never could. It teaches. And with time, those who hurt you will replay their actions in their own minds, without you needing to remind them. That's how karma works. You don't chase it, you embody it. When the toxic disappear, the right people start appearing. Not because you went searching, but because your energy now calls them in. Emotionally mature people sense peace. They're drawn to authenticity, to calm, to grounded presence. You'll notice your conversations change, from gossip to growth, from arguments to understanding. You'll crave silence, depth, and truth. You'll learn that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. That peace is not boring, it's sacred. And you'll realize that the fewer people you have, the clearer your life becomes. You'll stop needing to be surrounded and start choosing to be aligned. Once you reach this point, something profound happens. You stop seeking peace in others because you've become it. You become the calm in every room you enter. You become the mirror that reflects truth. And you'll notice not everyone can handle that light.
That's okay.
Your presence will attract those ready to rise and repel those still clinging to their chaos. You won't need to speak loudly anymore. Your silence, your discipline, your groundedness will speak louder than any argument ever could. That's when you finally understand. You never had to remove toxic people. You only had to remove the parts of you that kept tolerating them. Sometimes the most powerful transformation doesn't look like success, it looks like solitude. It's sitting in your room one night, realizing that all the wrong people have left and the right ones haven't arrived yet. And you're okay with that, because you've learned that peace is not something others give, it's something you protect. You've learned that your energy is sacred. That love doesn't have to be loud. That silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've stopped negotiating your worth. That's when you'll see the truth. Toxic people didn't disappear because you punished them. They disappeared because you finally loved yourself enough not to keep the door open. So if you're listening to this right now, remember this. You don't have to chase peace. You just have to stop entertaining what destroys it. Let people call you distant, cold, or changed. They're describing the version of you that no longer exists. You're not cruel, you're clear. You're not arrogant, you're awake. You're not antisocial, you're selective. Because peace is not for everyone. It's for those who've been through noise and chose stillness anyway. So here's your call to action. Choose silence over chaos. Choose energy over approval. Choose growth over guilt. And when you do, watch how the wrong people disappear and how life quietly introduces you to everything you were meant for.